Well, Mike Gonzalez is a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, a Washington-based conservative think tank. He was a journalist for almost 2 decades, including 11 years with the Wall Street Journal, with posts in Brussels and Hong Kong. He is the author of the brand new book, BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution. And he also wrote last year's acclaimed The Plot to Change America, a close look at how the left is using identity politics to reshape America. Mike joins us now from Washington. Mike, great to see you. How are you?
Great seeing you. I'm outside of Richmond in Virginia. And one of the things I did I was most proud of is I went to Sydney to interview John Howard when he was prime minister, and I had a fantastic time with him in your country. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, he's a great bloke, John Howard. We'll ask you in a second about 9/11 because it's still there where you are, Mike, 9/11, and love to get your thoughts on it. But before we do that, tell us about BLM, what you discovered about Black Lives Matter during your research for the book.
So the book, by the way, is selling very well. It's #1 in African-American history and other Amazon categories. Look, we're living in a BLM world. Maybe we don't hear about them as much anymore, but everything we're doing, I don't know how much you have heard about critical race theory.
Yes, we have.
The conflicts that we're having, the way it has invaded every aspect of our lives, whether it's K through 12 education or the military or the houses of worship or the military. The reason for that is because of the year that we had with Black Lives Matter. We also have had a very horrendous spike in homicides, which has hit not just Chicago, but a lot of our biggest cities and medium-sized cities. I've been traveling the country over the last 15 months. The last 3 months, I've been to 15 cities: Chicago, Indianapolis, Dallas. The spike is anywhere between 25% and 35% in the homicide rate. That is also a legacy of Black Lives Matter. But this idea, the fact that we seem to be living in it through a period of mass hysteria, which I compare in my book to Salem. I don't know if you know the story of Salem in the 1600s, when people were walking around saying that they were witches. Right now, it's the same way. If you Google the phrase "people are hurting" on Black Lives Matter, you get hundreds of thousands of hits. America, and as you said, I've lived all over the world, America is just not an oppressive society. We have lived in oppressive societies, and the people who say that we're oppressive and we need to change everything and we need to overhaul the system and completely pull out the foundations, do it for only one reason. And my conclusion, and the reason I titled the book this way, is that the organizations Black Lives Matters and the founders are just Marxist. They want to implement Marxism. And if we listen to what they say about themselves and their goals, they say exactly that. But our journalists just refuse to tell that story.
James.
Mike, what you just said there is absolutely right, and it goes along with my rule, which is always when people tell you what they are, believe them. Can you tell us a bit more about the Black Lives Matter Marxist links? And I'm specifically concerned about this idea a lot of people have that the riots and the demonstrations and the property destruction just happened spontaneously in protest about police brutality rather than being more coordinated. Can you just debunk a bit of that myth, please?
Yeah, so Black Lives Matter itself, early this year, in its 2020 impact report, was fantastic. It was chock full of information. It said that it had about 27 million visitors in the second half of 2020 to its website. It had an open rate of 63%, which is unheard of for its emails, which is unheard of in nonprofits. It sent out 127 million emails. 127 million emails in the year of 2020 with an open rate of 63%. And Black Lives Matter itself, the main organization, Black Lives Matter's Global Network Foundation, said out of these, 1.2 million actions were taken. It doesn't say what those actions were. If you couple that with what the U.S. Crisis Network, which is out of Princeton, and quite sympathetic to BLM, says that there were 633 riots in America last year. And out of those riots, the ones that we know the identity of the perpetrator, of the participant, BLM activists were involved in 95% of them. So these were not spontaneous. BLM is there to tell you so. In the U.S. Crisis Monitor tells you so. This was organized. If you put it together, the fact that it was organized, and they made very deft use of the agonizing death of this poor man, George Floyd, and of the fact that they have a fantastic slogan, Black Lives Matter. I subscribe to Black Lives Matter, the concept, Black Lives Matter to me. I say Black Lives Matter. I just think that the organizations that hide under this concept and the founders of these organizations have a blueprint. And again, thank you, because they say they do. And I don't, I gave away my last copy. I'm at a cocktail party here in Richmond. But the book is chock full of quotes from Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Cullors telling you exactly how they're Marxist and how they want to implement Marxism and Leninism and how they hate capitalism. One last thing. Patrice Cullors herself was recruited. Recruited is the word he uses by Eric Mann, a former member of the Weather Underground who spent time in prison. He recruited her and trained her.
Absolutely. Mike, we're going to run out of time in a second, so I just want to get, we'd love to hear your thoughts. It is 9/11 there, your experience of 9/11 and how America is feeling today.
Well, look, I served in a small capacity as a speechwriter in the Bush administration. I'm very proud to have done so. We kept the nation safe. I think that and thank you to the nation of Australia for being always there with us. We know that you're a good ally. I think that the manner in which we left, the humiliation that President Biden has put us through, obviously casts a shadow now over what we did in Afghanistan. But we will never forget those brave lives, and we will never forget that we have to fight evil, whether it's Islamist extremism, terrorism, or whether it's communism. Americans are attached to freedom. We will always fight against this type of evil and totalitarianism. And again, I want Australia, an astounding ally, the best ally. Thank you very much.
Mike Gonzalez, great words. Thanks so much for coming on. We put your book up there on the screen, so I'm sure Australians will be rushing out to buy it. Thanks so much, Mike Gonzalez, for coming on Outsiders. And enjoy that cocktail party. Sounds good.
Thank you.